You can't predict the future, but you can prepare for it. Arizona State University is building degrees for what's ahead. Programs designed around emerging fields, taught by faculty whose research is shaping our future, not just teaching about it. It's why we've been ranked #1 in innovation for more than a decade. Your future is worth preparing for, and you don't have to prepare alone. Future-proof your career. Explore more than 350 programs at asuonline.asu.edu. That's a degree better.
That's 800-553-7.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Ice Cube's Big Three is back. The most physical, fierce, and competitive basketball league on earth returns to CBS this Saturday. 3-time Big Three MVP ISO Joe Johnson and the reloaded Detroit Amps battle 2-time Big Three championship coach Steven Jackson's DMV trilogy, followed by Big Three's most intense rivalry. Defending champions Miami 305 and Michael Beasley chasing his third straight MVP take on Dwight Howard, coach Nick Young, and the LA Riot. Watch Big Three Saturday 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on CBS. Catch replays Monday 8 p.m. on BET.
What do you have to lose? Call 800-553-7217. Again, 800-553-7217.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here it goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football. Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
And welcome into the Deep South College Football Show here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. We're going to take a pause talking about the Crimson Tide today, as you can see from the YouTube thumbnail, which I get doesn't look great, but I'm refusing to use AI for my YouTube thumbnails, and sometimes life gets a little busy. So that's what I ended up with there. So I do apologize for the quality, but refuse to use AI on it. We're talking about the Auburn Tigers today, though. We're talking about Auburn continuing our season previews here. We've done Alabama and Arkansas. Took a brief hiatus with the Brendan Sorsby news that came out yesterday, but we're back on track here with the Auburn Tigers, the cross-state rival of the University of Alabama. So going to be a lot of fun here today talking about the Tigers. We'll try, gentlemen, we got to try to remove the Auburn hate. All right, we want to look at this objectively here when we look at Auburn's season here. We got Jackson and Whitman hanging out with us here. Jackson said, hell no. I'm not removing this bias.
Nope, no bias will be removed. I will try my best to look at it objectively, but also when you look at the Auburn Tigers, it's kind of hard to look at it objectively.
Fair enough. Whitman hanging out with us here in studio. He's repping Alabama today, so might be a little difficult to remove the bias from these two.
I'll put it aside today. Growing up, before I got big into college football, I had an aunt that went to Auburn. I used to think like it looked kind of cool. Couldn't tell you a single cat that played for Auburn like before 2015, other than a guy whose initial start was C and end with D. But you just don't mention that stuff around here. So I'm looking forward to it today. I think I've got some fun insight to provide that I can probably get through without mentioning one of these words up here on the paper. But we'll see.
Yes.
No Nick Marshall,
No.
Trey Mason?
No. Sounds like he might be an
Trey
undercover
Mason?
fan.
You don't know Trey Mason?
Right.
Dude, when I tell you I was all NFL in Major League Baseball.
Bro, he played for the Rams.
I didn't know where he went to school.
Okay. All right. Do you at least remember the name? Does the name sound kind of familiar to you?
I did not watch college football back then. I just didn't do it. Didn't do it. But
You
now
grew up
it's like,
uncultured, but it's okay. We're working on you now.
I don't understand how I was able to wake up every morning without it for like 18 years. It's like that sort of a sudden shift in the paradigm of my thinking. I don't know how I lived without it, but I'm really happy that I have
Let
it
us
now.
know when your dad visits you again down here, because I gotta have a talk with him. You let your kid go 18 years not watching college football?
Shame.
The hell, man.
Crying shame.
You missed like the glory days of the sport,
I know.
man.
I got here, spent 3 months as a Bama fan. Nick Saban just retires. I'm like, okay. My first 3 months of understanding college football, Nick Saban retires and Alabama gets good at basketball. I was like a college kid in a movie. I was really confused about a lot of stuff.
Understandable. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the Auburn Tigers today. Again, we're going to try to remove the bias against Auburn here because we do want to look at this objectively here. Starting off, it starts with new head coach here. When you look at Alex Golish replacing Hugh Freeze fired after a couple of seasons there on the Plains there. This offensive guru in Hugh Freeze couldn't field a competent offense when you look at what Auburn was rolling out there last year. Literally, I was on Inside the Locker Room this morning filling in for Wimpenberry Sanderson, and we actually talked with Bill Cameron, who does cover Auburn on a day-to-day basis. So got some good insight from Bill for a little bit later this afternoon here. We said that Auburn's best offensive performance under Hugh Freeze came the game after Hugh Freeze was fired when they went up to Nashville and went shot for shot with Vanderbilt, which is not at all what you want to hear when you have an offensive-minded head coach, not to mention, former four-star quarterback and Elite 11 MVP in Jackson Arnold, great running back in Jeremiah Cobb, and that receiver room of Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons, and Cam Coleman. So, not what you want to hear when you have an offensive-minded head coach, that your best offensive game came right after he got fired. So, Alex Golish is the new head coach taking over after spending 3 seasons with South Florida. He was previously the offensive coordinator at Tennessee in 2021 and 2022. Tennessee, 2022, we know what that means. He was the OC when Tennessee beat Alabama for the first time in 17 years. He brings with him his starting quarterback, Byron Brown, who's a 3,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher at South Florida. Pulled off a couple of SEC scares and even an SEC win when you look at their matchup with Florida in the Swamp last season.
Are you forgetting, I want to hit one more Hugh Freeze point, are you forgetting that absolute drumming they put on the Mercer Bears last year before the Iron Bowl?
That would be after Hugh Freeze got fired.
Yeah. Put some respect on the Tigers, man. It was a good game. Of course, the quarterback that did all of that isn't even there anymore, but...
I was going to say, Deuce Knight, the quarterback that I actually was kind of high on. I actually really liked Deuce Knight. Had a really good day against Mercer, and now he's Trinidad Chambliss is back up in Oxford, Mississippi. So we at least know the quarterback position is set for the next 2 years in Oxford, but we're not talking about Ole Miss. We're talking about Auburn here. They did bring Byron Brown with them from South Florida here. Alex Golish did. Like I said, 3,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher last season. A lot's been made about his throwing motion. A lot's been made about what he brings to the table in that aspect. I think Theo Fernandez from Bama Central was out at the Elite 11 where he was a counselor and posted some clips of him throwing, couldn't quite connect with his receivers. But the thing about Byron Brown, guys, is that you cannot evaluate him in 7-on-7 or routes on air. That's not all he is, right? It's, I don't even know how to equate it, but basically you're taking away half his game if you put him in in 7-on-7 type of situations and routes on air situations because of how dangerous he is in the run game with his legs. And speaking of the run game, Auburn's got a really good running back in Jeremiah Cobb returning as well. They brought in 3 transfer running backs that all had starting experience elsewhere in college football. You already got Jeremiah Cobb, Bryson Washington, Omar Mabson, as well as Nakai Davenport, who Bill Cameron told us this morning on Inside the Locker Room might be a little bit higher than where he's currently projected on that depth chart when you look at Auburn. So it seems like the run game should be fine for Auburn this season. If worse comes to worse and, they can't complete a forward pass to save their life, because we have seen that happen before, right? Oklahoma couldn't do it with Jackson Arnold at the helm. Auburn couldn't do it with Jackson Arnold at the helm either. So maybe Jackson Arnold was the common denominator there. But in the event that they struggle to throw the ball, we expect this run game to still be pretty consistent for Auburn this upcoming season here.
I think so. I mean, you know, they are returning that 17-year-old. I mean, he was 17 last year on the offensive line. He is returning, if I'm not mistaken.
He's back.
Yeah, he turned out to be pretty good, probably the best, you know, consistent performer on that offensive line. So I think you keep him. You add a few other pieces, and then, like you said, you're bringing in some really good, talented running backs to fill that void of what you lost. And so I do think that the run game probably will be the best aspect of this offense. Now, what we were talking about with Byron Brown and his throwing motion and him being, you know, taking away in the Elite 11 what he does best because it sprouts on air and that kind of thing, that leads me to believe that most teams and their defenses are going to play him to where they're forcing him to stay in the pocket and be a pocket passer, which is what he is not good at. So if his legs are that dynamic and he can get out of it, then maybe that saves them, but I don't know.
Not to mention, he mentions that, you know, they're going to try to keep Byron Brown in the pocket and force him to throw. That could be an issue because Auburn lost pretty much all of their elite level receiver talent last year to the transfer portal. Eric Singleton, Cam Coleman, et cetera, part of that wave of big recruits that Hugh Freeze was able to bring in, but after his departure,
the Freeze 4
went elsewhere. Yes. I thought it was 5.
It was 5. The last one is sitting in Tuscaloosa currently.
Poor guy. Who would that be?
I believe a kid by the name of Ryan Coleman Williams.
Ooh.
5-star wide receiver. Reclassed and was still the number 2 receiver in the class, by the way.
Kid can play.
Kid can ball. I covered him for 3 years in high school. Kid can ball. I know that for a fact. But they did also bring in Chaz Nimrod. Very unfortunate last name. But Chaz Nimrod is expected to be one of the leading receivers on this roster here. Had a really good start to the season for South Florida last year before dealing with injury. 23 receptions, 466 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you look at the makeup of this Auburn wide receiver room, right? Damn near every one of them is 6'2", 6'3", and about, 205, 210. So they're big physical receivers. Well, if you go back to what Tennessee did in 2022 when Alex Golesh was the offensive coordinator, that matches up exactly with what Josh Heupel likes to run. So you can very clearly see elements of the Josh Heupel offense in what Alex Golesh is running here, especially with guys like a Chaz Nimrod, who spent 2 seasons at Tennessee, has SEC experience, and then went to South Florida with Alex Golesh once Golesh left Tennessee. He hit the transfer portal and is now with Alex Golesh, was at South Florida, and is now back here when you look at his tenure with the Auburn Tigers.
I'm excited to see how those big receivers match up. I know this is way, way down the road. I'm excited to see how those big receivers match up against one of the sizier secondaries in the country that Alabama's got. Zabian Brown, not the tallest guy, but he's not the smallest by any means. Then, of course, Dejon Lee, opposite of him, super long, lengthy cornerback. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that shakes out there the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Another receiver that Auburn brought in via the transfer portal also came from South Florida in 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver Keyshawn Singleton in 2025 for South Florida. He kind of stepped up as that leading receiver once Chaz Nimrod suffered his injury and couldn't quite play as much as he wanted to. 877 yards, 8 touchdowns for Singleton last season. So when you look at Auburn offensively, you're starting to see the pieces maybe come together. You see elements of this offense, right? But the big concern for Auburn this year is the offensive line. They did retain the 17-year-old whose name just completely whiffed out of my head as soon as I tried to name his name. So I do apologize for that. But you did retain him. You brought in a lot of transfers along that offensive line. You had to replace Connor Lew, the big center from last season here. But the biggest concern is the offensive line. And I feel like that's a cop-out answer because that's probably the biggest concern for all 16 SEC teams. We said it about Alabama. We said it about Arkansas. We're going to say it about Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas, LSU. Every team with any chance at contending in the SEC, our biggest question is, can you protect your key quarterback? Can you protect that electric quarterback that you've got on that roster? And for Auburn, that is the case yet again here. When you look at the Tigers in 2026, you do face some really tough defenses here. We know Florida has got a history of really, really stout defenses. Tennessee, not necessarily known for their defense under Josh Heupel, but they did hire former Penn State defensive coordinator whose name again just slipped my mind.
Jim Knowles won a national championship with the Buckeyes in 2024.
Jim Knowles, yes, was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State when they won the national championship, was the defensive coordinator at Penn State. He got fired, and is now the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. So you've got a championship pedigree coordinator on Tennessee's roster there. Obviously, you got to face Georgia. That's a tough matchup. LSU with Blake Baker and Prince Will Uman-Mielen, Pete Golding and Ole Miss. You got to go to Oxford. And then, of course, Kane Womack and Alabama. So can you protect the quarterback? Because every team that I just rattled off has got some version of a really, really stout pass rush here. Even when you look at Tennessee and Chaz Coleman, who may or may not play this season. We'll get to Tennessee later on during our preview season here. But we know Georgia's got the pass rush. LSU's got Prince Will Uman-Mielen. Ole Miss has still got Suntarine Perkins there. Alabama's got Yanze Pierre. We expect Florida to kind of regain that Gator standard of defense that we know. And if you love them, great. You love it. If you hate it, fair enough. It's tough to play against when you look at what Florida can bring defensively. So your biggest concern for Auburn on offense, you got to be able to protect Byron Brown, and you got to give him the ability to scramble. You got to give him the ability to get outside of the pocket, right? Because if he's running for his life and isn't leaving the pocket on his own accord, then maybe things start to get a little rough. Things start to get a little hairy and a little scary there. But if you can design plays around, all right, let's roll him out. Let's get him outside of the pocket intentionally and use his legs in that way, then maybe Auburn's got something that they can work with there at the quarterback position. We'll talk defense here on the other side of this first timeout as we are off and rolling here on the Deep South College Football Show on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Ice Cube's Big Three is back. The most physical, fierce, and competitive basketball league on earth returns to CBS this Saturday. Three-time Big Three MVP ISO Joe Johnson and the reloaded Detroit Amps battle two-time Big Three championship coach Steven Jackson's DMV trilogy, followed by Big Three's most intense rivalry. Defending champions Miami 305 and Michael Beasley chasing his third straight MVP take on Dwight Howard, coach Nick Young, and the LA Riot. Watch Big Three Saturday 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on CBS. Catch replays Monday 8 p.m. on BET.
Hear that? That's the sound of busy. To a restaurant, all that shouting and banging might as well be a symphony. It means the long days and longer nights are paying off. Sure, it's noisy, but there's a worse sound. This, not busy. Busy means business, which is why Toast gives restaurants the tools and tech they need to help them perform under pressure. Sounds pretty good, right? Toast, built for busy.
Possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit TremfyaRadio.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. A lot of rain on the way here over the next several days. We have a flood watch in place through 7 p.m. Friday night. Showers and storms expected here this afternoon. As we'll see those temperatures climb to 87. Storms continue tonight, 74. More heavy rain and storms tomorrow and Friday. 81 tomorrow, 86 on Juneteenth Friday. Rest of the holiday weekend wet, upper 80s. Richard Wedding at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 88 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tide 100.9.
Talking about Auburn here on the Deep South College Football Show on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. Deep South College Football Show YouTube page, the Tide 100.9 Facebook page, and my X account. So we appreciate everybody who's checking us out there. When you look at Auburn's defense, they are led by defensive coordinator DJ Durkin, who, if that's a familiar name, it should be. He's got years of Power 4 experience, was the defensive coordinator at Auburn last season as well, in addition to being the interim head coach for the Auburn Tigers. And so Alex Golish has been asked about that before, retaining DJ Durkin. And if everything goes to plan, we may ask him that question as well here at SEC Media Days, as we're trying to line up interviews for Media Days in Tampa, Florida here in a month. Exactly a month from today would be that interview with Alex Golish. So let's hope that communications departments get back with us and we can land that interview with Coach Golish there at Media Days. But they are led by defensive coordinator DJ Durkin and retain a lot of pieces on that defense from a season ago. The retention of Durkin was crucial when you look at retaining a lot of these defensive pieces for the Tigers here. You got Deshaun Womack, a guy that Alabama was interested in on the recruiting trail, playing that defensive end spot. Jared Smith, another edge rusher, this one from Thompson High School in Alabaster, in his sophomore campaign that you really want to see more of if you're an Auburn fan. You want to see him take that next step when you look at what Auburn brings to the table this season, because no Keldrick Folk, now a member of the Tennessee Titans via the first round of the NFL draft. So you're losing a key piece on that defensive line there. But Jared Smith and Deshaun Womack are two guys that you look at and you think, okay, they probably together can replace the production of Falk. By the way, don't forget DeMarcus Riddick as well, who Alabama was recruiting. He chose Auburn over the Crimson Tide, and as a true freshman said, Jalen Milroe ain't faster than me, and then proceeded to get beat to the corner by Jalen Milroe for a rushing touchdown. So maybe a little bit less talk. Maybe talk just a little bit less, because these players hear this. These players understand what other teams are saying about them. Media, we can say whatever the hell we want, but from a player perspective, maybe don't give bulletin board material to opposing teams.
I have no issue with the talk, but sometimes I think it could be done more with your equipment, aka your shoulder pads.
Yeah.
We don't advocate.
You got to back it up.
Maybe the crown of the helmet a little bit. Talk with.
No, not the crown of the helmet.
With your mouth.
That's a penalty and it leads to injury.
Not in the good old days.
Well, not in the good old days, but we're not in the good old days anymore. Right? We care about player safety now. So maybe don't lead with the crown of the helmet. Lead with that shoulder pad. Lead with shoulder pad there. But no, DeMarcus Riddick is another guy that you look at it for Auburn here and you think, okay, that's probably somebody that needs to take that next step as well. He's entering his junior campaign, so he is draft eligible after this season. Don't know if he'll declare for the draft or not, but that is somebody that could potentially be departing Auburn after this season. You got Malik Autry and Jordan Crawford, two guys that saw a ton of reps for Auburn last season on that defensive line. So a lot of returning bodies on this defense for Auburn. And we haven't even made it to the inside linebacker position, where they still retain a guy like Xavier Atkins and Bryce Dees, who both got good reps last season for the Tigers. So again, a lot of returning production on this defense for Auburn. I don't want to compare the two, but it does seem like Alabama and Auburn are in similar spots on their defensive side of the ball. A lot of returning veterans, a lot of guys that have played a lot of football, and players that you're really going to need to rely on. Some younger guys are going to have to step up and make plays that maybe they didn't have to make last season.
Definitely, and I think that was a common theme last year for Auburn when this defense, they were younger, but it was most definitely the best part of that team last year.
Yeah.
Helmed, like we've been talking about, by Durkin, and it's really what kept them in most of their games that were, I believe every SEC game they were in were pretty tight. Georgia,
yeah.
Alabama, Oklahoma. I mean, they were all pretty tight, but if they can't figure it out on offense again and they're just having to lean on that rushing attack, it might be another long season for Auburn. Like I did when we had our dark horse predictions for who would finish, who last year finished at the bottom half that could finish in the middle. Mm-hmm. I did have them as one of my candidates to do that. I still think they can, but for me that just means they'll probably go 6-6 as opposed to 4-7.
Yeah, but if they go 6-6, hey, that's a bowl game. They hadn't been to one of those since 2020, 2018, 2019, something like that.
They went to a bowl game a couple years ago. They lost it, but
they got in that game.
They haven't had a winning record since 2020, but I think they made a bowl game at 6-6 in like 21 or 22, and then immediately lost it. I think that was the Birmingham Bowl, and they lost to Houston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That cannot be fun.
Houston at the time was a G5 program, too. They hadn't even made the Power 4 jump yet. But looking at it here, though, secondary is another strength of this Auburn team. So when Alabama and Auburn play, I don't know that I'd be expecting a ton of passing yards because Rayshawn Pleasant, starter last season, Sylvester Smith Reed. I was wanting to call him Sylvester Reed Smith, but Sylvester Smith Reed returning at that nickelback spot there. Caleb Harris and Eric Winters, two guys that played for them last season. I look at Auburn here and I think, okay, You've got a veteran secondary. You've got a veteran linebacking core. You've got some veterans on the defensive line, but you also need some younger guys to step up. I mean, is this not basically the Alabama defense just wearing orange and blue?
Maybe a little bit, but I also would emphasize here that, you have a first-time new head coach in the SEC, and you're playing Alabama, Georgia, basically most of your biggest games on the road in the conference. And I feel like with, that G5 roster that he's bringing in on offense as well, that's going to be spotlight them stadium lights in Bryant-Denny or Sanford or Oxford, they'll get a little bright in those eyes, I feel like.
Yeah, those lights are awfully bright down there when you look at Bryant-Denny, Sanford Stadium, like you mentioned, Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah, and when these players haven't felt hate just for wearing a different jersey like they're going to face this year.
Yeah.
Ever. So.
But looking at the defense here, like we mentioned, if the offense sputters, if they can't throw the ball and maybe their offensive line's not working quite to the level that it needs to be, if you're Auburn, you need to be able to rely on that defense again. And that's so key for a first-year head coach. And really and truly, it's key for a first-year head coach anytime. You got to have at least one side of the ball that you can rely on. Not saying that, you can't go win a national championship in year number one, although it's very, very rare that it happens. You can't go make a playoff in year number one. I'm not saying that's the case. But so oftentimes, a coach is fired because either the team as a whole is ass or one side of the ball can't live up to the hype, right? You have an offensive-minded head coach in Hugh Freeze, and you can't field a competent offense to save your life. What, you scored 3 points against Kentucky. That should not happen if you're Hugh Freeze and an offensive-minded head coach. So,
and you were at home.
At home, yeah, at home. Wasn't that homecoming for them? Yeah, so you can't score 3 points at home against Kentucky on homecoming and expect to keep your job. Just flat out no. So, okay, you had a ton of roster churn on the offensive side of the football. Can your current makeup of offensive players return to the level that it needs to be at? Return to the level that you expect Auburn to be at? I don't know. It's a question mark. But I will say, not all questions necessarily mean that it's a weakness, right? Just because something is a question mark doesn't mean that it's a weakness on the team. It's just an unknown currently. There's a lot of teams in the SEC that have question marks, but we're probably not going to call them a weakness. Now, there are other areas, like I'm using the Alabama example because we're based in Tuscaloosa and we cover Alabama on a day-to-day basis. Alabama, the quarterback position is a question mark. We don't know what's going to happen at quarterback, but based off the track record of Alabama over the last 10 years and Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and what they've been able to do at the quarterback position, probably not going to call quarterback a weakness for Alabama this season. It's simply just a question. The offensive line is a big question for Alabama. And based off the last 2 seasons, based on every year since 2020 when Alabama's really struggled on the offensive line, might call that a weakness for the Crimson Tide. So that's kind of where we sit with Auburn right now. The offensive line, I'd probably call that a weakness. But quarterback, running back, receiver, they may be questions, but I'm not necessarily going to call those weak spots for the Auburn Tigers entering this season. Does that make sense? So looking at it here, defensively, if they cannot rely on the offense, if that offense struggles, sputters, whatever words you want to use, doesn't have the continuities early in the season, you may have to rely on that defense to win you a ball game or two, such as Baylor and Atlanta, week 3 against Florida, or maybe even week 4 against Vanderbilt. We'll go over the schedule here next as we take our halftime break here on the Deep.
Ice Cube's Big 3 is back. The most physical, fierce, and competitive basketball league on earth returns to CBS this Saturday. 3-time Big 3 MVP ISO Joe Johnson and the reloaded Detroit Amps battle 2-time Big 3 championship coach Steven Jackson's DMV trilogy, followed by Big 3's most intense rivalry. Defending champions Miami 305 and Michael Beasley chasing his 3rd straight MVP take on Dwight Howard, coach Nick Young, and the LA Riot. Watch Big 3 Saturday 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on CBS. Catch replays Monday 8 p.m. on BET.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
That's 800-923-6829. What do you have to lose? Call 800-923-6829. Again, 800-923-6829.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
We've talked offense, we've talked defense. Now let's take a look at the schedule for Auburn here when we look at our season preview and predictions coming up in the final segment here for the Auburn Tigers here. You look at the Auburn football schedule, and remember, they opened the season against Baylor, similar to what they did last season. However, this Baylor matchup here will take place in Atlanta, Georgia for a neutral site matchup. So Auburn went to Baylor last season in the Fort Worth area and is now going to return the home game, but play it in Atlanta in a neutral site game. I air quotes around neutral site because hell of a lot easier to get to Atlanta from Auburn than it is Baylor. Just the way the cookie crumbles there. Your home opener is against Southern Miss. It says time TBD. I think they have a kickoff window, but I'm not sure exactly when that game is going to be here. I think it's an early kickoff time window there for Auburn. So probably going to be bright and early against Southern Miss in your home opener. The home opener for Alex Golish as well. Your SEC opener is against Florida at 6 o'clock on ESPN. And that game's going to be really, really interesting because two first-year head coaches, right, in the SEC at least, Summerall and Golish had experience in the American and actually played against or coached against each other in the American Conference there. But this game's going to be really interesting because all throughout the coaching cycle, right, it was Lane Kiffin is choosing between LSU and Florida. Well, Auburn basically gets to the finish line. Like the contract is printed out. It's been looked over by lawyers, and all that's left is for John Summerall to put pen to paper to be the next head coach at Auburn. Lane Kiffin chooses LSU. Florida pivots at the last minute and steals John Summerall. Just snatches the rug out from under Auburn and steals John Summerall. So Auburn snatches the rug out from under Arkansas, who was at that same point with Alex Golish, and hires Alex Golish. So feels like there may be a little bit of extra chippiness from Auburn in that game with the idea that, hey, John Summerall, maybe you should have come here. Maybe this program isn't that far behind where Florida is, right? Feels like there may be, at least from a fan perspective, right? Because these players, these coaches, they came with Alex Golish here. They're bought into Alex Golish. But from a fan standpoint and the stadium environment, there's probably going to be a little bit of extra chippiness trying to, shove it to John Summerall and say, yeah, you should have come here. You should have picked us and not the other blue and orange school in the SEC. A lot of teams overlap with mascots and color schemes, I've realized, in the SEC. Odd note there. You do play Vanderbilt in, I guess it is a revenge game, but, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt handled you 2 years in a row. Pavia handled you at New Mexico as well while he was there. So maybe Auburn can finally beat Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt, with their win last season, took the overall series against Auburn. I think Vanderbilt leads the overall series against Auburn at this point. So maybe you can tie that thing up now now that Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers are no longer members of the Vanderbilt football team there. You finally play a true road game for the first time on October the 3rd. And this October schedule is brutal for Auburn here when you look at it. At Tennessee on October the 3rd. At Georgia on October the 17th for that rivalry game. You host LSU on October 24th. And you go to Ole Miss on Halloween night, October 31st. You play 3 road games out of the 4 games that you play, and your one home game is Lane Kiffin and LSU in an 11 a.m. kick. So you don't even really get the big stadium atmosphere at night, right? Because that place, it's a voodoo palace. When it turns to night in Jordan-Hare Stadium, all hell breaks loose, and it's not fun for opposing teams. You don't get that with Auburn and LSU this season. That's an 11 a.m. game there. You roll into November with 3, no disrespect to these programs, cupcake games. Arkansas at Mississippi State. Okay, cowbells are a little odd there. They make it difficult to play. And then Samford is your SEC Network Plus game, ESPN Plus game. The SEC mandates that every team play 1 game on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. And so that's Auburn's game. It'll be against Samford there, the Birmingham school, and then the Iron Bowl to round out the season here. I look at this schedule. Auburn beat Baylor last season, and Auburn is, I would say, going to be better this year than they were last year. So we can tentatively check that Baylor game as a win. Southern Miss, that's a win. No disrespect to the Golden Eagles down there. And then you got 3 games at the tail end of the season, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Samford, that you're going to be favored in. You should handle your business in those games. Well, we got 5 wins right there for Auburn. And we haven't even touched on the fact that Florida, Vanderbilt are both home games there. I don't want to say it's easy because it's never easy in the SEC. Starkville's going to be rocking even that late in the year. But I almost see a quote-unquote easy path to 6-6 for Auburn here.
I would take it a step further than easy, and I would say...
maybe manageable is the right word.
Almost necessary that they win those 6 games. Start 4-0. Florida will be a good team, depending on your definition of good, not great. But you get them at home. You do not want to start your SEC career at home with a loss. In today's world of every single eyeball feels like it is directly staring down your neck with every decision you make as a head coach, you got to beat Vanderbilt. You can't lose to Vandy 3 straight years. You just can't do it. So 4-0 is crucial, especially considering the fact that you're probably going to go to Neyland Stadium and lose. You're going to lose to Georgia.
Are they going to go to Neyland and lose, though? It's Alex Golish's homecoming in Knoxville. Tennessee's kind of sitting in a weird spot at quarterback. Your best defensive player is probably not going to play because, as of right now, Chaz Coleman isn't on the roster. He isn't in Knoxville.
First SEC road match, though, for a new head coach and G5 roster.
Scary.
Good point.
I mean, it is fair to say Byron Brown will not have seen anything throughout the start of his career at Auburn like he will October 3rd in Knoxville. So I'd go ahead and chalk up Tennessee, Georgia. You could say even if they lose 4 straight games and it feels like the program is just dead, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, if you're 4-4, that on paper looks really not good. But then you've got those 3 after that. You're sitting at 7-4 heading into the Iron Bowl. You're probably going to lose that one too because Auburn does not win in Bryant-Denny. But
haven't done it in 16 years,
7-5 with the meat of that schedule looking the way it is, I'm not mad at that. That means you knock off Florida. You take precedent over another first-year head coach. You get the bragging rights, like you mentioned, over a guy that maybe should have gone to Auburn. You alleviate the ghost of Vanderbilt because Diego Pavia is not there to beat you anymore. I mean, that was just extremely unfortunate on their behalf that they let Diego Pavia beat him 3 years in a row.
I believe that will also be Jared Curtis's first SEC road game here. Let me double check Vandy's schedule here. But I want to say that's his first SEC road game. It is. It's his first SEC game ever, too, by the way. Vandy goes Austin Peay, Delaware, NC State at home, and you open SEC play on the road at Auburn.
Then I think they have a shot to win that game. I think Florida's going to beat them. I mean, Florida's offense, I just think there's too many weapons. They can go anywhere. Dallas Wilson, Singleton, Jaden Ball. I think that offense is going to be legit, and I think Florida's
You've
defense...
got the offensive coordinator that led the number 1 Power 4 offense last year at Georgia Tech.
Right. You bring in Philo, his quarterback, that offensive coordinator's quarterback for the past 2 seasons. Granted, he was a backup, but still, I think Florida wins that game, and I think, Florida's defense as well is pretty comparable to what Auburn has, I would say, and so I think it'll probably be, I think Florida either blows them out or wins in a close game. I don't think Auburn wins that game.
So you think there's no chance Florida loses in Jordan-Hare at night?
No.
Wow. Okay. All right.
No.
This is what happens when you let somebody from the Ryan Fowler show talk about Auburn. What do we expect him to say?
Okay, fair point on that one. This is the meat of that schedule, man. The meat of SEC play right there. Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss. There's and at Tennessee to start that. And by the way, Arkansas, I know we don't love the Razorbacks this season, but they played in a lot of 1-score games last year. If those start to go Arkansas's way, are you in a rock fight in the 4th quarter with Arkansas at that point? So, even the front and the back end of this meat of the schedule here, those 3 brutal games, you could really and truly drop either of those, right? Because going into Tennessee, you understand that that's Alex Golish's first game back in Knoxville. They're going to be rowdy. They're going to be ready to go. And, oh, by the way, this is your first SEC road game as an SEC quarterback as well for Byron Brown. And then coming out of that slate, you go to Oxford and you're beat down, you're battered, you're bruised, you're probably lost at least 3 straight, if not 4. God forbid it's 5 or 6 at that point. And you finally come up for air to catch your breath. And, oh, here comes Arkansas with the top 20 roster in the sport and punches you in the mouth as well. And like I said, now you're in a rock fight in the fourth quarter. So this schedule could easily go okay. By okay, I mean, 7-5 if you win some of your toss-up games, or are you 4-8 again? Are you 4-8 at that point because you got punched in the mouth by Florida? Vandy just has some voodoo doll over the top of you right now. Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, you go over in the month of October. And then Arkansas punches you in the mouth because you thought, oh, this is an easy team. Psych. Or you go to Starkville and suddenly the Cowbells are just hell for 60 minutes in that game there. And, oh, by the way, you end the season in Tuscaloosa against an Alabama team that, according to our preseason prediction of 10-2 for Alabama, we all had 10-2 for Alabama, are fighting for their playoff lives at that point, are fighting for their chance to get into the college football playoff at that point. Alabama, with its back against the wall, is one of the most dangerous things in college football.
I wouldn't necessarily say that game would be a fighting for a playoff spot. I think it's Auburn coming into Bryant-Denny like we just talked about. They don't win here. They get demolished here, and I think that's more of a game where Alabama goes out and shows the committee, okay, we deserve a higher seed than, let's say, 9 or 10.
We deserve that home playoff game is what Alabama's going to try and say going into that matchup with the Iron Bowl there if things play out the way that we've predicted for the Crimson Tide. We'll take this final time out here, and we will give our record predictions for the Auburn Tigers as we wrap up our Auburn preview show here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
West Tuscaloosa's Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School has a new principal who is stepping up after his predecessor left the system to take another role in Huntsville. The City Council has approved a $5.75 million incentives package to redevelop a portion of the Springbrook neighborhood in Tuscaloosa for new-to-market restaurants and retailers. And the husband of a young nurse and mother who was shot and killed outside of DCH Regional Medical Center last month has sued the hospital, its third-party security firm, and the alleged shooter over her death. For the details on these stories and more free coverage of local news, get connected at TuscaloosaThread.com. These hourly news updates are powered by Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, the only place where you can get in a car, truck, or SUV for $1 down. It's a crime.
At Shreve & Company, we believe that jewelry is an expression of your own unique style. This season, discover the magic of layering. Stack delicate necklaces that tell their own stories or mix and match bracelets that embrace your wrist with whispers of sophistication. Create a look that's entirely your own, whether it's for a gala or your everyday style. Let our experts guide you in crafting the perfect layered look. Shreve & Company, extraordinary jewelry and timepieces in Palo Alto in the Stanford Shopping Center.
Ice Cube's Big Three is back. The most physical, fierce, and competitive basketball league on earth returns to CBS this Saturday. 3-time Big Three MVP ISO Joe Johnson and the reloaded Detroit Amps battle 2-time Big Three championship coach Steven Jackson's DMV trilogy, followed by Big Three's most intense rivalry. Defending champions Miami 305 and Michael Beasley chasing his third straight MVP take on Dwight Howard, coach Nick Young, and the LA Riot. Watch Big Three Saturday 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on CBS. Catch replays Monday 8 p.m. on BET.
And 2 lines of Essentials Choice 55. $35 connection charge per line required. Best mobile network and fastest 5G home internet based on analysis by Oak Cliff Speed Test Intelligence Data 2H 2025. All rights reserved.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
We've got about a minute and a half left here in the program, so we'll go quick with this here. Jackson, give me your record prediction and SEC record prediction for Auburn.
I think overall record prediction, I'm gonna go 6-6.
Okay.
SEC record prediction 3-6.
Okay, so you've got 6-6, and you said 3-6 in SEC play?
Yep.
All right, Whitman, what you got?
I'll go 7-5, undefeated in the non-conference.
Okay.
Which would leave you with 4-5. I see Mississippi State, Arkansas, Florida, and Vandy. They'll win in bunches this year and lose in bunches as well.
I think that's fair. For me, I've got Auburn going 6-6 and 3-6 in conference play there. I've also got them undefeated in the non-con there with Baylor, Southern Miss, and Samford, losing to Florida, but beating Vanderbilt, getting that monkey off their back, and then winning 3 straight to end the season there outside of the Alabama game, obviously, because they don't win in Tuscaloosa. It is what it is at this point. So thank you so much, Jackson and Whitman. Coming up next on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC is The Game with Ryan Fowler. Like I mentioned, it coming up here on Tide.
Order for Jennifer C.
Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double whip, double sleeve?
Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine?
Did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, really? That's great.
Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, you just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
I can't have any more? Why not?
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.